We're taking a look at incredibly warm temperatures across portions of the Northeast, and not just for one day, but we're talking multiple days going forward. Now, right now, it's actually still pretty cool. We're talking below freezing. Places like Binghamton, also up around Burlington, Vermont as well. But going into the afternoon, we're talking temperatures that are very warm. I know on paper it may not sound like 43 or 42 are necessarily that warm, but you have to keep in mind the perspective. This is well above average for these areas. We're talking 65 for Pittsburgh. Take a look at Charleston, 73 degrees for their high temperature for today. And then going into tomorrow, again, more of that warmth begins to spread farther northward. Binghamton about 56, New York City getting awfully close to a 60-degree high temperature. Nice and mild. Again, you have to remember it's still February. It just doesn't feel like it. 65 by Thursday. We're talking 60 starting to spread even farther north. Washington, D.C. now likely going to be in the mid-70s by Thursday. And here's a look again just for some perspective. Albany, New York, forecast high of 67. That's where they would normally be on May 10th. You're talking 3 months nearly above average. Philadelphia, 69. They would normally hit that about April 28th, sitting in 4th place. But given that we still have rain in the forecast for the next several days before the month ends, they're likely to start jumping up on that list. Portland also likely to crack the top 5. Same thing with Salem, Oregon as well. So here's a look at the radar. Again, you can see the snow into some of the higher elevations there, but basically all along I-5 from Seattle stretching all the way down towards Eugene, you've got some of those rain showers. Most of them are light at this hour, but you have to keep in mind ponding has been an issue for the last several days. So even light rain is likely to add to some of that localized flooding. Then we move down to California. This has been a sore subject for California for weeks now due to the landslides, the mudslides. We're talking sinkholes that have been occurring there, and more rain yet for today. For much of the Pacific Northwest, though, we still have the chance for some rain going through the day today, especially as we push our way forward, and it will likely continue even through the day on. It's not out of the question. Here is a look at what we have for the radar right now as we speak. A lot of the heavy rain moved through New Orleans, unfortunately, during morning rush hour. Not the best time to have it, but as it pushes forward, it looks like cities like Atlanta, Macon, also around Nashville, were able to skirt by the morning rush and not having to deal with it, but the evening rush hour may be a little bit of a different scenario. Here's a closer look again right around Panama City, Pensacola. We're starting to see some of those heavier bands come in, and look at some of this heavy rain, these reds and orange colors in here. So you could be looking at some brief downpours as you may be driving, especially right there along Interstate 10 over towards Tallahassee. So keep that in mind if you have some driving plans later on into the day today. A little bit farther north again, Nashville just now starting to see some of it begin to creep into some of their southern suburbs, maybe around Murfreesboro again, but interstate travel along I-40 likely going to be soggy as you're going from Memphis. But we're also talking how slow this system is. It's not a fast mover. As it continues to push east, it's going to pull that moisture source up from the Gulf. It's also going to have some nice mild temperatures, so some thunderstorms will be mixed in as well. But here's the thing. Normally, when you have that disturbance that moves very slow like that, it can dump a significant amount of rain. That's not necessarily going to be the case for today. Now, we have the rain and thunderstorms in the forecast for today. Tonight, it begins to shift a little bit to the east. Cities like Charlotte, Columbia, South Carolina, and into Atlanta will also start to get some of those heavier showers at times. And then tomorrow, the main threat is really going to be from Atlanta, stretching all the way down towards Miami. And portions of South Florida could actually stand to use some of the rain. So I don't think they're complaining too much. But we talked about it. When you have these slow storms, they typically can dump significant amounts of moisture. This really isn't going to be that case. We're talking widespread, most areas maybe up to an inch at best. Others, especially kind of hugging along the coast where that low is going to situate itself, we're talking maybe about 2 to 3 inches. But again, it's going to be over a 2 to 3 day period. So at least it's not going to be all in, say, about 6 hours. Here's a look at Atlanta. Again, it arrives kind of around your evening rush hour commute tonight. Not exactly the best time, and will last through the overnight hours. As we go into the early morning, you may have to contend with it for your morning commute tomorrow as well. And then here's a look at Orlando again, but we've talked about thunderstorms, but here's the thing. There is a term called thunderstorm asthma. Now, it's not necessarily that you're allergic to thunderstorms. It's something entirely different. Here's Alex Wilson to explain. Of the Midwest by the time we edge toward the end of the week. And for some, actually, it's needed because we are below average for much of the season. Take Minneapolis, Indianapolis, and St. Louis, for example, all of which are about a foot below average for the season. Chicago only about 8 inches below, but even still, they really kind of need to have that snow. Now, most of the folks that really need the snow would be your ski resorts and a lot of the businesses that focus around it. People who have to drive in it, probably okay with the amount amounts that you're seeing right here, but nonetheless below average for the season. We've got the storm that's going to begin the setup over around the Rockies region. As it begins to push east, we will have that jet stream. That's going to allow for some of that colder air to infiltrate into portions of the high plains and the Midwest by the end of the week. What that means is as that low pushes in, that cold air is going to be in place. That means the rain that will start will likely transition into snow for some cities like Minneapolis, Green Bay, even Marquette. Cities over towards the high plains and the Rockies will already have that cold air established. They're likely only going to get snow at this point. But with that cold air, it's also going to push a little farther east. So even if you don't necessarily get the snow, you're certainly going to see those nice, mild, high temperatures going away pretty quickly by the end of the week. Here's a look at Wednesday night. Again, it's mostly a Rockies event and into the northern plains. But by Thursday, we begin to see it start to shift over into portions of the Midwest. Sioux Falls looking at some snow showers at this point. By Thursday, Minneapolis, you will see that transition from rain into snow at that point. Des Moines, Green Bay, you're going to be on that line. So you're going to start with some of that rain and see the transition over into a mix and eventually into some snow by the time we get to Friday. But notice down here, that red severe region, that's going to be something we're talking about here in just the next couple of minutes. But as that system begins to progress east, it transitions that rain into snow and will also drop those temperatures back too, because even Chicago, after the snow is done, you're going to see much colder air push through. We have that nice swath there from Cheyenne all the way up to Marquette that may end up getting pretty decent snow, maybe 5, 8, even as much as 12 inches of snow. But if you go a little far out of that band, say too far north to International Falls or even down to Omaha, you're not going to be dealing with that much snow at all for these regions as we get Thursday into Friday. Now here's a look at Friday. It really maybe starts perhaps Thursday night for some of these regions around Chicago, Indianapolis, and Springfield. But by Friday, this is where we really have that bullseye. We're talking cities like Cleveland, Cincinnati, even around Louisville that have the threat for severe weather. Mainly some large hail and even some damaging winds are going to be the biggest factors with this storm. As that low moves east, remember, it's going to be strengthening as it does so. But now we've got not only that warm, moist air that's going to be pulled up ahead of the front, but you've also got some of those lower level jet stream winds that will also be arriving. Then further south, you've got some of those stronger upper level, winds that will be arriving. All of those are necessary ingredients to have that severe weather in this region. So here's a look at Thursday night. Again, we start to see some of those stronger thunderstorms begin to fire back up, but your main focus for your severe weather is really going to be on Friday for a lot of these regions here into the morning. And then by Friday night, it begins to shift a little farther east now, going from, say, more of a Chicago event in the morning to more of a Cleveland event into the evening hours. One perk is that as we push into Saturday, even though the rain itself begins to shift farther east, the severe threat really starts to die back down. So cities like New York and Boston, while you have to contend with the rain, you don't necessarily have to contend with the severe threat necessarily that will be arriving into here. But still looking at some of that potential for some rain showers. Cincinnati, you're looking at some thunderstorms on Thursday, really starting to ramp up Thursday, and then Friday pretty much an all-day washout, with the main threat for severe being after about 4 to 5 p.m. on Friday, lasting through the evening hours. Washington, D.C. being